Hey everyone, and welcome to part 8 of my WitchWood card reviews. Today I've got 5 new cards to show you, so I'll get straight into them. So the first card I'm going to talk about today is an epic neutral minion, and I think this card is really powerful. It's called Voodoo Doll. It costs 3 mana, has 1 attack and 1 health, so the stats are very weak, but it has the battle cry of choose any minion on the board, so you can choose an opponent's minion or your minion. And the death rattle is destroy the chosen minion. Now, on its own, that's not great. It feels a little bit too slow, so you can pick an opponent's minion on the board. You're only playing a 1/1. You have to wait until your next turn to be able to trade the Voodoo Doll in and kill that minion. So this gives your opponent the opportunity to do whatever they want with that minion that you've selected. They could already trade it into one of your other minions, or maybe hit your face and deal some big damage. And also they can silence your Voodoo Doll. This card is very weak to silence because your opponent's minion will be still there without taking any damage whatsoever. They can also use any of the shapeshifting mechanics to change Voodoo Doll into something else. So it's too slow on its own. It can be really good. It can, like if your opponent hasn't got an answer, then sometimes if it's your only play, it can work really well to get rid of a big minion on your opponent's side. But where this card is hugely strong is when you combine it with other cards, and in particular classes are going to find it really easy to combine their cards with this. And one of them, unfortunately, is Warlock. I don't think Warlock needs any more strong cards, but Voodoo Doll works excellently in that class. And the main reason it's really good in Warlock is because of Defile. Defile is one of the best board clears in the game because it only costs 2 mana. The problem with Defile is it does take a little bit of setup, but it has the potential to have infinite damage. Now with Voodoo Doll, it suddenly makes it so much easier to make your Defile effective. And Defile's only 2 mana, so the whole combo costs 5 mana. And when you play your Voodoo Doll, the Voodoo Doll instantly becomes your first minion to die. So that's the first benefit. It becomes your activator if you haven't got any other 1 health minions on the board. Secondly, it can kill a minion which is outside of the Defile damage that you're going to be able to create from the combo. So Defile can work so well if you set it up perfectly, but sometimes if there's some lower cost minions and then one big minion on the board, it's very difficult to remove the big minion. Well, now you just play Voodoo Doll on the bigger minion that was outside of the effect. Then you play Defile, Voodoo Doll dies, the big minion dies, and then the chain goes on. So you can see instantly with Defile, it makes that card so much better. Defile is a very good card, and suddenly Voodoo Doll makes it better. Secondly, Warlock can use it with Mortal Coil. So you could play this, then Mortal Coil your own Voodoo Doll to kill your opponent's minion. So that is 4 mana, kill an opponent's minion and draw a card. You can use it with Dark Pact. So you pay 4 mana to kill an opponent's minion and restore 8 health. It also works with Hellfire, making Hellfire better because it only deals 3 damage. Suddenly you can kill a minion with more than 3 health. So a very strong card. It also works in Mage because you can play this card and then ping it with your own hero power. Now that costs 5 mana, maybe not as good as Polymorph, but in some situations you don't want to have Polymorph. So you can do this without paying a spell. So if you're playing big spell mage, for example, taking the Polymorph out of your deck is quite an advantage because it only costs 4 mana and you don't necessarily want those lower cost spells in your deck. So, and this way it also plays around secrets. When you play Voodoo Doll, it could work really well with explosive runes because it will die instantly to the explosive runes and kill your opponent's minion. It could work well with Mirror Entity because they'll only get a 1/1. It plays around Catrick in Hunter because you can kill an opponent's minion without using a spell. It's really strong. I like this card a lot. It has a lot of uses. Frostlich Jaina as well would love this card because you play it onto the board and you hero power it. You summon a water elemental because you're killing a 1/1, and also you kill an opponent's minion. So it's so versatile. I think some classes where you can't deal damage to yourself, it's not going to be as strong. Probably wouldn't see play, but you can Every class you can do this, because all you need is an Elven Archer, for example, that you could play for 1 mana and kill yourself. But also you could use cards that give this one taunt, so your opponent does have to trade into it. It just makes it more weak to silence. So a very good card, and one which I think Warlock will like, even though they don't particularly need it. This next card is a legendary Druid minion. It's called Splinter Graft. Unfortunately, I think this isn't a great minion again. I'm a little bit concerned about Druid. They seem to be not getting many good legendary cards. They seem to be very memey and kind of situational. But this one costs 8 mana. It has 8 attack and 8 health. So the stats aren't terrible. It's pretty average to play this, and it's quite slow the turn you play this. But it does have a really interesting battle cry, and I do like the effect. Choose a friendly minion. Add a 10/10 copy of into your hand that costs 10. So this kind of adds loads of possibilities to your mind, that you play this onto the board and you can suddenly, any minion in the game, you suddenly have a 10/10 copy of it. So what springs to mind, if you get Saronite Chain Gang, suddenly you can then play a 10/10 Chain Gang which summons a copy of itself, so you get 2 10/10s. That's really cool. Also you could play this with a Stone Tusk Boar, and you can play it on the same turn. So you could play your Stone Tusk Boar for 1 mana, then you play your Splinter Graft, and then you get a 10/10 with charge, which can go into your opponent's face. So that is, again, quite a strong play. Unfortunately, because it costs 10 mana, it's not something you could combo with Leroy Jenkins or a Faceless Manipulator, for example. It would just be a 10/10 with charge. So you going face doesn't necessarily give you enough to make it an excellent combo, because you have to have those 2 cards to play the Splinter Graft. Now, because it costs 8 mana as well, you're going to have a minion on the board that you want to copy. Unless it costs less than 2 mana, like the Stone Tusk Boar, it's going to have to be already on the board. So that instantly makes it weaker. The other thing is as well is that when you get the minion in your hand, it does take up the whole of your next turn. So you've got to remember, if you're playing an 8 mana 8/8, which is relatively slow, then you're playing a 10 mana 10/10, the next turn that is again going to be quite slow. 2 quite slow plays, depending on which minion you copy, for example. It's got loads of cool options. Actually, it's another way, for a deck that I like playing with Hadronox, it's another way to get another Hadronox back into your hand. This time it would be a 10/10 Hadronox that you could play, but it just seems too slow. I'm not sure there's too many cards in the game which you'd really want to have back in your hand as a 10/10 to be able to play. We've seen cards like this before that summon 1/1 copies, or add a 1/1 copy to your hand, and that's because that works better because the death rattles or the battle cries are often, especially in combo decks, are often more important than the stats of the minion. So being able to play a 1/1 Lich King and getting any of the cards back from the Lich King is incredible. Being able to play a 1 mana Brand Bronzebeard, for example, allows loads of combos that you could do in Wild. So unfortunately, making it a 10/10, although it feels like it could be really strong, might actually make the card more clunkier and harder to play. So a fun card to try, but not one which I think is very good, unfortunately. Next we have another legendary minion, and this one is called Toki Time Tinker, and this card costs 6 mana, has 5 attack and 5 health, so the stat line's below average, but it has a battle cry of add a random legendary minion from the past to your hand. So what this means is add a minion that's in Wild or the Hall of Fame to your hand. Now, that's got some really cool possibilities. This card, unfortunately, isn't great. It is a meme card, so you're playing it to try and get a really cool legendary that's in Wild. But it's not reliable, because it is random, it's not reliable enough to be a combo card to make some really cool mage combos. It is really cool, though. I like it. I think it is probably strong enough that if you might not want to craft this, but if you drew it, you might put it in a mage deck. And the reason why I think it's reasonably strong is because playing 6 mana, getting a 5/5 on the board isn't awful. It is a bit slow, but you are also drawing a card, and you're drawing a card which is a legendary. So that does have some benefits. So if you open this from your packs, you might want to try it in your mage deck. Now, just looking at some of the possibilities you can get, though, it's really quite cool. So cards you get like the Boombot, Dr. Boom, sorry, incredible card. Emperor Thorisan, that can be really strong, especially in mage, making some of your spells a lot cheaper. Got Sylvanas Windrunner, Chromagus, all sorts of really cool legendary minions which have been moved into the wild set, which and some of them have been moved to the wild set because they will be too strong. So if you get them, obviously that's really cool. It is just random though, so you never know what you're going to get. You can't plan for it. A fun card, I like this one a lot. I like being able to play the old cards that we've had previously. I like being able to see them in the game. And you know, if you play this on 6 and then you get a Dr. Boom, your opponent is going to be very, very upset. So definitely one which I'd like to try, but not necessarily one that I'll be crafting. Next up, we've got 2 cards for the rogue class which do synergize together. The first one is a rare. It's called Miss Wraith. It costs 4 mana, has 3 attack and 5 health, so the stats are average. But whenever you play an echo card, it gains +1/+1. So whenever you get these gain +1/+1 cards, it's sometimes quite difficult to get them to activate. Whereas this really works well with the Echo effect, because the effect of Echo is you can keep playing it as much as your mana allows. So if you do have an Echo card in your hand, then you can get this effect to come off really quite easily. The problem is that it costs 4 mana to play this minion in the first place. So playing on the same turn, you're only really likely to be able to play 3 other Echo cards, in which case it becomes an 8/6. Now, that is great, a 4 mana 8/6, but if it is a 4 mana 8/6 and you have managed to do that on one turn, it means that you are on turn 10, which means your opponent will probably have quite an easy way to get rid of an 8/6. Where it would be really strong is if you play this on turn 4 and it manages to survive until turn 5, and then you play a couple of Echo cards and keep snowballing it that way. So it's quite an interesting one. I do like this concept, and we've already seen Cheap Shot in Rogue, which is the one that does 2 damage to a minion and has Echo as well. So instantly you can see using Cheap Shot, you can clear opponent's minions without even having to trade in your Miss Wraith. So that is another way that you can make it snowball into a bigger minion. Now, when we move on to the next card, this is another one which can synergize with it. It's called Pickpocket. This is a 2 mana spell. It's rare, and it has Echo as well. So it would activate the Miss Wraith, and its effect is add a random card to your hand from your opponent's class. So again, this does synergize quite well with the Spectral Cutlass, which we talked about previously. This is the card where whenever you play a card from your opponent's class, it gains +1 durability. So this seems like quite a cool card too, but you are effectively paying 2 mana to draw a card, and it's worse than drawing a card because you're drawing a random card from your opponent's class. So it could be better, but really it's usually better to draw a card from your own deck than just get a random one. So this seems like quite an expensive spell to play. So if you've got Miss Wraith on the board and you play 3 of these or something, the cards you're playing are effectively giving you no tempo because they come into your hand and then you have to spend the mana to play them maybe the next turn. But Miss Wraith does kind of synergize with it quite well because it's gaining +1/+1 each time you play it. So if you can combo the 2, then it does allow you to have a little bit of tempo on the board whilst playing this relatively slow card of Pickpocket. And as I said before, it works quite well with the Cheap Shot as well because that can help to move your other minions. I still don't know whether this Spectral Cutlass deck will be good. I'm definitely interested in it. This sounds like a fun deck to play, and it seems to fit into the rogue class very well. It seems like the sort of deck they would try and play. And I'm looking forward to trying to make it. 2 interesting cards, quite cool. I'm looking forward to playing with them, but not necessarily very powerful at the moment. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to hit the like button or the subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this, because I will be doing daily ones as the cards are released. See you next time.